For the first time in the 2022 season, the Dallas Cowboys have 40 burgers for everybody as they beat down the Bears 49-29 at AT&T Stadium. 2 straight wins against the NFC North and their 6th win of the campaign, now at 6-2 on the season heading into their bye week. Welcome in to the First Word, presented by Dr. Pepper from the Star in Frisco, here with Nate Newton, Isaiah Stanback, and Barry Church. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Glad you're with us. And it was a game that started early and often for the offense in the end zone. They scored on their first 4 drives, and all of them touchdown drives for the Cowboys early on. And Barry, it was a welcome sight to see this offense finally find a rhythm this year.
This offense definitely had a rhythm, and hats goes off to that offensive line. I felt like they did a great job, especially when you talk about the run game. Pollard here, 14 rushes, 131 yards, 3 total touchdowns. I mean, he had a heck of a day out there. And we all knew he had kind of had that juice for the long, explosive runs, but can he do it on an every-down basis? Can he be a 3-down running back? I think he answered a lot of those questions out there. They didn't overload his plate too much. They got the ball to him in a variety of different ways, so hats goes off to that offense, especially that offensive line. They did a heck of a job. Defensively, there were some cracks still when you talk about that rushing attack, because Montgomery, Herbert, and Fields, they were able to run the ball pretty well against his defense. I think they went over 240 yards for the game rushing against this Dallas defense, so they got some holes to pick up, but like always, this defense hustles out there and does their thing. Great solid victory for the Dallas Cowboys.
See, Kyle, in the hood, we call this an old school mollywop. Hey, these guys got mollywop up and down the doggone field. This is what you like to see out of your Dallas Cowboys when they're facing an opponent. Obviously, BC just touched on where we need to continue to improve. That's why you saw big Jonathan Hankins come in. He made a few plays here and there. We saw Damone Clark get in there. So some of these guys still have to get their feet wet to have some kind of impact defensively. But offensively, it was great to see the ground game get going. TP, Tony Pollard, can't say enough about his ability to change speed, be able to put his foot in the ground, change directions, and be that explosive back. He showed a lot today, not only to the nation, but he also showed a lot to himself that he is capable of being the number 1 back.
And and Dax was spinning the rock. Only one bad pass, right before the half, he threw that interception, but he was spinning the rock pretty good. He was 21 for 27, around 250 yards. He found his boy Schultz. They was rolling, man. TP. Lord Jesus, boy. That offensive line, they welcomed Dak back for the 2nd week with the right way to do it. They blocked for him real well. They got Tony Pollard going. Malik Davis, he shook him down a little bit in the end. That'll close it out. Cowboys.
How about that? Yeah, there you go. There's your big win. Now, you talked about Tony Pollard. We have to hit Tony, especially because Ezekiel Elliott not in the ball game, just the 10th time and throughout his career, as I highlighted on the broadcast, that he has missed a game in his NFL career. And there was a lot of questions. Can Tony Pollard shoulder the load? And even going into this, you said maybe he's not going to have to shoulder the load. Well, he did, and he did so with a ton of success. What did you think about Tony Pollard's performance?
Just the dynamic runner that he is. I mean, looking at those cuts, some of those cuts he was able to make out there, I mean, they were extremely dynamic. It was in the middle of all types of traffic. You had defensive linemen, you had linebackers, safeties flying all around, and he's able to make guys miss in a phone booth. And not only that, he's able to take it to distance. I mean, we've seen it time and time again where this guy is running away from the defense. He shored up a little bit in that pass protection. The sky's limit for this guy, man.
TP showed a lot today. You talked about his ability to cut. Those were not regular scissors. Those weren't the ones that come with the Elmer's.
Right. Not the plastic joint.
No, these were shears. That boy was cutting up the defense. But he had the holes there as well. Not only did he do his job, but the offensive line gave him an opportunity, as Nate already alluded to. Those guys created a lot of gaps, created a lot of holes, and he simply just had to make his one guy miss, and we saw the result of that.
Just punishment, man. Total punishment. He hit up in there 14 times, like you say, for 131 yards. You say, hey, we hitting on him, bro, because Chicago showed couldn't, bro. He broke away. It's like you say, safety's missing him. He's special. Yeah. He's special. And they kept the numbers right, around 14, 15. That's who he is. Yeah. And they kept him fresh, and they gave him a little bit of Malik Davis and a whole lot of this Tony Pollard. He's real.
Even Dak Prescott finishing with a rushing touchdown as well, so he ran it a little bit too in the early parts of the game. And we'll talk plenty on the rest of the post-game coverage about this offense and just how that run set up the pass. And kind of this was the blueprint that the Cowboys offense had finally wanted to see come true. But let's flip to the defensive side of things and talk about what they were able to do, because this is really the first time they've been gashed like this on the ground. I mean, you could maybe go back to that Monday Night Football game against the New York Giants. They did not play well against the run, but on the outside of it, didn't necessarily need to be any better, at least after the game got out of hand in the second half.
Yeah, it started to get out of hand, and Chicago, like we knew, they were going to stick to the ground game. All types of bad news was going to happen, but they were going to stick to that run game. So they handed it off to Herbert. They handed it off to Montgomery. The thing that discouraged me a lot, there was a lot of missed tackles out there. A lot of missed tackles that I did not usually see from a Dan Quinn coach defense, and a lot of guys getting behind the secondary. I mean, I don't know if that was, they wanted to be uptight because of Fields running the ball and his dangerous ability, but you saw guys get behind him. Fields was able to throw 3 touchdowns out there. So it wasn't our best performance, but we did get the job done.
I don't disagree with you on the regard in terms of coming downhill. These guys were not being aggressive, at least at our second level of coming downhill and wrapping up. We were watching a game, you're talking about how these guys are coming in, they're hitting, right? But when you're throwing yourself in there and hitting, you're not wrapping up. And against the running backs that Chicago Bears have, you have to be able to wrap these guys up, and you cannot hesitate. I feel like our linebackers were kind of just slowly kind of over pursuing sometimes, and then sometimes they had opportunities to come downhill and shoot the gap, and they were just not doing so. I'm not really sure why that was. Donovan Wilson did a good job of coming down there and making a couple big plays, but ultimately we have to do better on the ground. I know we got some big fellas in there to come in and help, but tonight was not enough.
43 running plays. Yeah, it was going to look bad because you only had 126-yard passing by field. They were overplaying things, and they got sucked up a couple of times. You got behind. But I looked at this kid last week, and I thought he was making great strides. He still has a long way to go. I mean, he's not as accurate as he need to be. He can't get the ball as deep. A lot of times you were saying during the game, I said, wow, underthrow? That should never happen. You should get the ball out there 43 times, brother. You're going to have a few missed tackles.
And one of the big things this season surrounding this Cowboys team is resilience. That's their word. That's what they've used. That's their rally cry throughout 2022. And you can see it across the board just in games like this. You go up big. You're up 28-7 early on. Everything's firing on all cylinders. And then a couple mistakes toward the end of the half, a touchdown at the start of the third quarter. And all of a sudden, it's a 5-point game. It's 28-23. Here come the Bears. But then what happened? Dallas responded. That was one of the most encouraging things to me. Did you see that response? And when something happens like that in a locker room, how much does that galvanize the guys around you?
Without a doubt, it gets you pumped up and it gets you going in the right direction. But I love what Dan Quinn's able to do with his defense as far as adjustments. I mean, we were talking about it during the game out there, but he might be one of the best coaches in coming out in second half adjustments. That runner was gashing us early and often, but the second half, they were able to contain it slightly, and then the lead kind of ballooned and they started going after these guys. But to me, I love his adjustments and the resilience of this team. It's outstanding.
Yeah, the game should not have been as close as it was earlier on, right? And I know Nate was over here about the flip tables because what we saw last week when Kellen Moore sent the team out there for the fourth down conversion, right? The fourth down opportunity, and then what happened? Mike McCarthy called a timeout, said, no, young fella, come back here. Let's go ahead and get the ball off, right? Kick a field goal. We did not see that today from Mike McCarthy. Kellen Moore went out there, was a little bit overly aggressive with Dak Prescott, and that's when you saw that interception that kept the game kind of close at that point in time, and it forced the defense to have to step up and start making some plays and create some disparity in terms of the score. We got to cut back on those opportunities. Teams should not have the ability to hang around because, as you mentioned earlier, Nate, when teams are allowed to hang around, the better teams that we're going to face, that's going to create problems because you're providing them another opportunity to score.
And simply put, that's the difference between a winning program and a losing program. Yeah. When they got close, the Cowboys started making winning plays. The Bears didn't make winning plays. They started fumbling. Balls started going all over the place. And that's just that slight difference in believing that you can do it and having that doubt that you can do it.
A 20-point win for the Cowboys, 49-29 the final score, 7 total touchdowns for the Cowboys today, one of them on the defensive side of the football. Micah Parsons with his first ever NFL touchdown score, and he did it in a fun way. One of the keys going into this, Nate Newton, you said be better on third down.
Yes.
They certainly were. 9 of 11 on third down. I think that's a pretty good number moving forward to keep an eye on. You look at the rushing yards, 200 for both teams, but it was really Tony Pollard that led the way, 14 carries for 131 on the ground and 3 touchdowns for Big Pollard, the 2-0, doing some good work on the 20th anniversary of Emmitt Smith breaking the all-time rushing record this week as well. Plenty more post-game reaction. We'll go back out to AT&T Stadium and hear some more here in a little bit on Cowboys OT and Cowboys Game Night. But for Nate, for Isaiah, and Barry, I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long on the first word. The Cowboys win it 49-29 over the Bears.